Today we're going to be going over Morphmarket Auctions ending anywhere between Friday the 8th of November and Sunday the 10th of November. But first I wanted to mention that we should be getting back to live streams of this on Tuesdays, probably starting next week, and our regular content should return to normal as well. So without waiting any further, let's get right into it with this Pastel Lace Yellowbelly Het Clown male. This ends in under a day. Now there is a reserve price to this, which has not been met, but if you can meet that reserve price, which again we do not know what that is, this would be a really nice one to add. And I probably sound like a broken record when I make these suggestions sometimes, but it is not ideal to have a male be het for the project in a recessive anyways that you're going for. But in certain cases it can still be a pretty powerful boon to you, because if you can get this for a good deal, that would be very nice. Mostly just so that you can get the lace into the project. Breeding this into a visual female just to get a visual clown lace, preferably with the Yellowbelly coming along too, quite frankly, would be really cool. After that animal were to grow up, preferably a male with some other genetics that you probably want to go for at the same time, you could then move on from this animal and pass that same exact opportunity to someone else to just get the lace gene bred into their clown projects. Again, not ideal when you're talking about a male that really we want to breed to multiple females, but if you really want to start working the lace gene, that might be the best path for you. As it stands right now, it really just depends on what that reserve price is, but let's just say you were interested in this at a certain price point. You would bid up to that price point, but not right away. For example, if I was willing to bid 500 bucks on this animal, I would not just type 500 bucks and let it rip, because maybe the reserve is much lower. That would be very silly. Bid yourself up there in little increments. So let's just say you wanted to put 50 bucks on this, and then that didn't meet it, you go 75, you go 100, you kind of walk your way on up there until the reserve price drops off. Or if you get to that max point where you no longer want to spend that much, you can just stop bidding, because if the reserve price isn't met and the auction ends, then it just voids out. But still a really cool animal to give a chance to add that lace. But if you haven't ever seen what a lace clown can possibly do, take a look at these Enchi spot nose lace clowns, or even crazier when you get the white lace, which is the super lace, by the way. How nice and clean these animals are. They rival desert ghosts, quite frankly, in how clean and bright they make the animal. It's so unbelievably gorgeous. Or you could go even more wild, where you're kind of combining some of these darker undertones with this grainy look through the bottom of the animal. Very clean patterns, but then dark outlining, all on top of a deep and rich orange color that can't really be rivaled by anything besides mandarin or some of these just absolutely bonkers animals. Obviously there's more than just lace in this, but you have Cypress, Yellowbelly, Spot Nose, Russo, and Lace. And you do have the Yellowbelly along for the ride here, so you can just kind of unpack here what eventually you can get to and how awesome they really could possibly look. Whether you were able to beat the reserve on this animal or not, or if this animal lines up with your project, you should certainly keep an eye on Lace and try to make a place for it in your collection. Next up would be this Leopard pied Het Sunset from Bob's Balls here. This is well on its way to being breeding size at 300 grams. But what's even cooler is that Het Sunset. So if you're working the Sunset project, you already have a visual pied here. That's a great step if you didn't want to start trying to create these your own, or God forbid buy into them, which is fairly expensive. You could do this along with already having the leopard gene as an extra oomph to all this. You would either want to go to a Sunset, a female that's het for pied, which again, that could be a little up there in price, so maybe you go to a double het. Maybe if you're already in on the project, you've already created the hets yourself and you just want to increase your odds. I actually just recently did that. I created double het pied Monarchs. However, I wanted to increase my odds, so I ended up getting a visual pied that was 100% het for Monarch from Best Dressed Balls, in order to increase my odds in doing this. And that would put you on a good path to creating this beauty right here, the Sunset Pied. I really like these animals, and I feel like it actually ends up doing a wonder in kind of brightening the animal up, creating a ton of cool pattern. And what I really love is what Pied does anyways. It kind of borders the pattern quite often with that nice cool little orange. You can see it right there. But in a Sunset, it makes it even cooler because they're kind of already, you know, orangey. So that's what this animal here would represent, is an ability to kind of push towards that sort of project. It's a really cool project, which I struggle to see very many genes in it just yet, other than just the Sunset Pieds, and I know that there have been others, obviously, but there's still a lot of ground to go with adding more into this double recessive project here. Following that up with another huge heavy-hitting recessive project would be this Monsoon boy right here. This could be a crazy good deal for somebody. Monsoons go for quite a bit more than what this one is bid at this point too. I feel like it was put up for $3,500, which is really cool because this has no reserve on it at all. Monsoons still to this day go into about the $8,000 range. So, you know, I don't know how many people will be in on this because it is an expensive animal. If you were wanting to get a Monsoon, this could be a very good opportunity to get one at a possibly significant discount. I do anticipate that it will go for more, but we don't know for sure. Being a male, if you wanted to start creating your own, this would be really cool. A lot of people think like no, female is the way to go, but that to me doesn't make sense if you want to start a project. The male is going to be able to breed to multiple females, so you're going to be able to put this to them and create the hets yourself, and you're going to be able to do it in half or less the time because a male gets the size in about a year and a half. I've even heard of it even crazier. I've seen it, quite frankly. I've seen people get them ready in 6 months. So it's going to happen a lot sooner than with a female, who's at best going to probably be 3 years most likely. Maybe if you're super duper lucky in the 2-ish years, but face it, more often than not it's 3, or sometimes if you get a bad eater, sometimes it's more with a female. And then when you breed to it, guess what? You're only going to get the one clutch to create all the eggs, and guess what? They're still gonna all be hets. So while when eventually you breed back to it, that male, you'll have an easier going around it then, you can still do the same thing in all that time and create far more snakes that are het for Monsoon and start working your ideas and projects in that way. And then you grow up the females from there, and usually quite a bit more of them, and then you would breed this male back to them to get your visuals. Now, I know that sounds gross, but mammals and reptiles are very different from each other, obviously, and that is in one of the ways that they are different, that you can do that without any of the crazy issues with inbreeding. Personally, I think that the Monsoon pattern is perfect. It's almost so good that it's impossible to really do much else with pattern morph genes. Maybe there's someone out there that has an idea to do something with it, but I struggle to find what. Color, on the other hand, is a completely different story. Color is a great avenue to work into the Monsoon gene, whether it be an albinism of some sort, or my favorite stuff, the T+ albinism like Monarch, or whether it be trying to get some enhancing genes into this, like Desert Ghost, or maybe the Lace, which we just recently spoke about, possibly even Redhead and things like that might make this really, really pop. But I feel like color is definitely the avenue that you should focus on, is getting color into the Monsoon, because this pattern, it's already perfect. I don't see a reason to really mess with it, adding things to it, and quite frankly, the Monsoon pattern is probably going to dominate the heck out of anything you do with it. Still a really cool opportunity for someone that really wants to get into the Monsoon gene for, well, a lot less than you would if you just tried to look one up, most likely. And on that, there are some Monsoon females up here, well, at least possible. There is a reserve on this one, but I don't think it'd be much. I mean, they say themselves it's pretty low. It's 100% hypo and 50% het Monsoon. This girl has one benefit to her, that she is 500 grams. She's already well on her way. As you can see here, they mentioned that it has Monsoon markers, and some people are like, what does that mean? Het Monsoons are known to have this pattern stretching along the back, kind of combining with itself like this right here. These crazy looking patterns that kind of just stretch across the back. This is giving very heavy Monsoon markers. Now, there is variety that can happen, but this is a little bit of a unique variety, one that seems pretty unique to them, so it's, in my opinion, probably likely to prove out. They say that there's a low reserve. I don't know what that reserve would be, but again, if it's low, you know, kind of walk yourself up there. Maybe it's like $100. Doesn't that be cool? Being in a female, that's cool. Breed this up if you were to get this one here, and there you go. You're already creating your own Monsoons right off the bat if this one proves out. And again, it has a lot of markers kind of showing off that it could prove out. And wouldn't you know it, there's another one up here. This Monsoon 50% Het Hypo from Old Troy City Reptiles. And again with a reserve price, but this is a female Monsoon. Hypo, like I mentioned with Desert Ghost, would be another great way to go. Kind of like a enhancer type looking gene where it definitely brightens the animal up. Obviously this is some big bucks along with the other one here, but when you consider how much these animals go for, this is a very good deal. So if you're already in on the Monsoon project, if you want to work the Hypo project, guess what? Hypo is a gene that our GI does a test for. The Monsoon project is very, very popular and it's not going anywhere. And I argue that as the price slowly creeps down and gets to more affordable levels, that it's just going to explode even more. You know, as more people are able to afford this, it is the most pattern disruption that you can get in ball pythons, bar none. It blows the pattern up. It gets its name because it looks like a bunch of little raindrops. But a really cool project, probably one of the most sought after recessive morphs right now, I would say. Our next one is a pretty decently big group with no reserve, and that would be a Hypo Desert Ghost group. This auction is a little bit more male heavy, but includes a Pastel Chocolate Leopard Enchi double het Hypo Desert Ghost. I'm gonna skip over the females and come back to them, but another male Chocolate Leopard double het Hypo Desert Ghost, a double het Hypo Desert Ghost male, and 2 more double het Hypo Desert Ghost males. The females include a Pastel Enchi double het Hypo Desert Ghost and a Pastel Chocolate double het Hypo Desert Ghost. This would be kind of cool to maybe get in on with a group. So if you know somebody that's also into ball pythons, maybe get into it with them and pool your money together and have sort of a draft, I suppose, with each person getting 1 female and each person getting 2 males. If you did 2 people, you know, obviously those females will be highly sought after. But either way, the potential to get like a super chocolate Leopard Enchi Hypo Desert Ghost, that sounds really cool. I highly doubt that's been done. It actually has been done and it's absolutely gorgeous. This one also has Clown in it, but it's a super chocolate Desert Ghost Hypo Clown. So take the Clown out and you'd still have these beautiful colors. You would also have possibly Leopard Enchi in the mix. That would be very ideal in these combos. Again, that also had Clown in it, so you are missing that ingredient to create what we just showed, but it gives you definitely a great idea of the coloring and whatnot that you get and the rich saturation of those colors. Very cool and pretty darn cheap right now. Ends the day this video comes out. If it's something that suits your fancy, if it works out for you, if you're able to find a person to maybe go in on with this too, that would be really cool. Next would be this Cypress Clown female. Cypress is really nice gene and it's very, very nice with clowns as well. It kind of reminds me a little bit of Mojave, but with its own flavor. It has a little bit less of the lightning factors to it, I feel. It always creates a snake with just this nice, beautiful tannish orange head. It brings in some of this blushing, but also keeps the dark dorsal back of the snake very dark and just absolutely creates this crazy cool pattern. I always feel like it does the keyholes the same way the Mojave does it, which is why I compared it that way. But just very beautiful and what it does for everything with the coloring and everything like that. And it works really good with clowns. And if you don't believe me, you look at the Cypress, this one right here, this Cypress white lace Firefly Clown. This is insanely bright, but look in between here. Normally an animal like this would be whitened out, but it brings in this cool peach colors instead. Just absolutely gorgeous. And again, it combines it with that lace, which makes it even more crazy. But even something as nice as this Cypress Red Stripe Pastel Clown. Only talking 3 genetics here, and this is just an absolutely wonderful looking animal with just so much cool pattern. And that pattern kind of almost reminds you of what the Monsoon was doing, just with these little dots, only this time you get the dorsal and everything else there too. Just absolutely beautiful and gorgeous. And by the way, this is a phenomenal picture. All of these are incredible. This is how you market, by the way. It's just not the topic of the video, but maybe that'll be coming up. But that's the sort of stuff I like talking about with this. And again, that's just 2 genes off from here. Cypress Clown is a really cool one to work. You get your males, a powerhouse male to put to this girl, and you'll definitely be making some amazing animals. Following that up with this Black Pastel Pied female. And I definitely want to show this one off because of the potential for what Black Pastel can do. Everybody always knows about the Panda Pieds. That is the super Black Pastel, and they are very, very nice. They are normally very, very black and very, very white. Unfortunately, they do favor mostly being white with just a little bit less pattern. In fact, this is one of the more high pattern Panda Pieds I have seen. Black Pastel, for whatever reason, when combined with pied, it doesn't dominate in terms of bringing in a lot of black, ironically. But where it does, it is incredibly black. It's about the most black and white snake you can get, and their popularity is well known. However, I would be remiss not to mention that the panda pieds do have a little bit of a downside, and that's that they have a little bit of higher chance of being born kink. This chance is not higher than 50% or something crazy like that, but it is more likely to happen than when you do a normal pairing, which, by the way, it is always possible to get a deformed or kink snake. So if you do choose to work the panda pied route, don't let anybody tell you that you're bad, that you've done something horrible. I don't think that the chances are high enough to the point where I would say that it is so bad that I think it should just not be done. I don't believe that. However, they are higher. So some people choose to just stay away from it because of that. And there's also nothing wrong with that opinion either. I think it just should be known that if that's the sort of route you want to go, that you should, well, be knowledgeable about it. However, there are other options you can go with this project. It's only $60 as it stands right now with a marginal amount of interest. I think that this will end at a very favorable price point, and I think that there's a lot of different avenues you can go. Definitely try to get something that adds more pattern into it, though. That's the thing with black pastel and pied in general, is it definitely, you can even see it here, takes away that pattern, and I want it back. I'm all about the, you know, little bit more pattern, maybe just a little bit more pattern than 50-50 is kind of my preference, but still a great deal regardless. Next up would be this Asphalt or Yellowbelly clown grill. This I think would be definitely worth sending in a shed test for, because that would ideally allow you to know what to breed to it. If it's an Asphalt clown, you can get a Yellowbelly clown male, which there's plenty of them around, and you can start producing the freeway clowns, and those are absolutely bonkers. And if you don't believe me, take a look at some of these animals right here. This is a reptile keeper line of Asphalt, I believe it is, which I only just recently found out was a thing. It kind of changes the pattern up a little bit. This is a highway clown right here. However, it's very similar. The only difference is that instead of asphalt, you get gravel. In these cases, they do look very similar though. These ones I feel just are a little bit lighter, but you can kind of see here where you're going with this. The highway project in general isn't going anywhere. It's going to be popular with breeders. It's going to be popular with pet keepers forever, and therefore adding clown on top of that to create something as gorgeous as these animals right here, that is going to be even better. A really cool option here. Again, I think it's worth sending in a shed test RGI on this, because that allows you to kind of determine what male you need to put it to. Reason being is that if it ends up being a Yellowbelly clown, if you breed a male with Yellowbelly to it, you're going to get an all-white snake, like an ivory. Even if it is clown, it's going to cover up a lot of that, if not all of that. So not ideal to an ivory in that case. With that being said, if it ends up being an Asphalt, I would not care if I bred an Asphalt to it or a Yellowbelly to it, because Asphalt, super Asphalts are insane as well. Like this absolutely gorgeous boy from Mutation Creation, who needs no introduction, of course. Just a lot of bursting colors and pattern, just so much going on here that it's hard to even know where to start. But again, that's kind of how I look at an animal, is I look at where can I go from here, and that is right where my mind goes. Is obviously you want to go towards the freeway or the highway projects. Those Yellowbelly complex projects, they're amazing, and they will always, again, be amazing. Taking a quick break from ball pythons to look at these beautiful hognoses. There isn't always a lot of hognoses, and that hasn't changed anything here, but I did want to call attention to a few of them that are here today. Starting off with this coral Conda breeding pair, and a coral is an albino and a lavender combined. The male is a Conda lavender, 50% het albino, and the female is a double het albino lavender, or coral. They did say that they got a small clutch of 4 out of this breeding pair, and you know, they did not hit on that, unfortunately, but that is a bit of a small clutch to be able to determine that. With that said, these are a breeding pair, which means that they are ready to go. So even if they weren't proven out as that, you do have one that is, so their babies could end up being that way, and you're immediately creating hognoses right off the bat. Which, breeding hognoses, they're expensive. I'll tell you that. There's no doubt in my mind that the interest in here will be high, and this bidding will go up, but I think that for the cost of a normal pair of hognoses, this would be a good project to possibly get into. Following that up with this Arctic Sunburst, which is a purple line extreme red cross. There's a lot going on there, but let me explain. Arctic is a incomplete dominant, which means it has a super form, but it is a kind of frosty type gene, kind of frostens it up and creates a lot of cool contrasts. Purple line and extreme red are actually polygenic traits, which means they kind of go along with the snake no matter what you breed it to. It's not something we talk about in bull pythons very much. Albino is what's bringing in all these cool reds and oranges and those nice bright red eyes, and sable darkens the animal. It's a very darkened gene, which is creating the Sunburst, which is about, in my opinion, still the most popular hognose combo that you can get. This one being one of the best from JMG Reptiles, who is probably the best US breeder of hognoses that I can think of anyways. The animal is just so beautiful and dark and just exuding of what the sun would be, just properly named. Sunburst is the project that I want to start working with. So this is a very, very nice looking animal, no doubt. And to cap it off with the hognoses today would be this pair of snowmakers, which is also a very, very beautiful red albino. That's Het Snow and a green line Axanthic Het Snow. That's again a lot to unpack, but you can see these beautiful reds, just extremely beautiful in this animal against the stark, like orangish whitish background of the animal. The male is an extreme red albino Het Snow from the JMG reptile line. Guess that makes sense, right? And the female is a green line Axanthic Het Snow, and this is her right here. So the snow hognose is this right here. It's about as close to pink as you're gonna get, and quite frankly, I've seen ones that just straight up are pink. You can't tell me that they're not. A very cool project to possibly get into here. These ones I don't think are ready to breed by any means. They look like they're babies, obviously, but a great project to work, and having the extreme red in there as well, and the green line Axanthic, you're kind of flirting with just a little bit of an extra oomph to the power of the beauty these animals will create. Jumping back into our bull pythons from Chimera would be this Fire or Disco Lace Pastel Clown Boy. This could be a really nice addition to someone. Again, if you want to start working the lace project, you have a visual lace right here. Fire and Disco are very similar, but they kind of serve in a way the same purpose of lightening the animal. Lace being in there as well is what's just absolutely putting this over the top, bringing in those crazy whites just shooting up from the bottom. Immediately what I'd want is to just get lace. That is the ideal thing here, is that lace gene to be put into your projects. Being a visual clown too, that's super cool, because you're going to be able to put this to females and start working the lace project right away, especially if they're visual clown females, and just hope that you're hitting the combos that you want. Sometimes you don't want certain ones. You might not want certain genes to come along, like Pastel, but in lace it's still very, very nice. I would like a good split personally, which is great because usually you're going to get 50-50, right? What's even better about this is if you find yourself a female lace, whether she's maybe even a het clown, you can start working the white lace right away as well. Really cool project. We already spoke about the lace earlier and some of the absolutely insane things you can do with that, like these absolutely gorgeous animals here. But these are the sorts of animals you want to target to strike a balance between finding a good budget for yourself but still working great combos with these exceedingly beautiful genetics that are subtle. You know, like lace is decently subtle. Things like redhead are subtle, and so is Yellowbelly, but we all know how beautiful those can be, so definitely don't turn a blind eye to what lace can do for you. Up next would be this Yellowbelly Het Sunset female. No reserve on this. Nothing too much to say about this other than the fact that obviously working sunset, if you get yourself a visual male or anything for that matter, this I don't know if is going to go for in a crazy amount. So this is not going to be for everybody, but if you want to start working these cool projects like Sunset, this is a great way to get into it. You grow this girl up, she's 100% Het Sunset. You could take time to try to source the male at that too, so maybe the prices come down a bit. You don't need it right away. It's only 125 grams. You grow this up, get it to maybe about 700-800 grams, and then you can source your male if you really want. And then by then, maybe the sunsets have come down to a far more reasonable range for you, and then you can start making them within a very short period of time after that. Just a great deal, I think, depending on what this goes at. By the time this comes out, it'll be just under 2 days that this female will be available, and then you can start possibly creating your own sunsets in the near future. Another great female to show off here would be the Super Orange Dream Enchi Pastel Blade Clown. A lot to unpack here. Being a female is really great. She's always going to pass on one copy of her clown gene, being het clowns for everything. If you breed her to a visual clown, obviously everything will be clown, but she'll also pass on one copy of Orange Dream to every single thing she breeds to. Blade is a unique gene. Some people I have heard say that Blade is just Enchi. I don't know if I buy that. I don't know enough about it. Often you see Blade combined with Clown, almost like they're married together. In fact, I've heard people say, isn't Blade just a version of Clown, or is it something that's just extraordinary in just Clown itself? I don't know about that. I don't have the answer to that. I'm just reiterating the things I have heard about that. If you had to ask my opinion, though, I do believe that they are distinct. I just don't have much more to add on top of that, other than the fact that this would be a very nice female to get into a breeding project. There's a lot of cool things you can do with Orange Dream. Orange Dream is obviously incredibly popular. It works well with Enchi. It works well with even Pastel and keeping it nice and bright. Yellowbelly would be a great one to get into this. Those work well together. OD, Enchi, Yellowbelly. And another great one we already talked about earlier would be Lace, because then you're adding in a kind of a enhancing type gene to really control and brighten this animal up to levels that you haven't even thought of or seen before. It'd be absolutely gorgeous. Maybe get that male from earlier to put it to. And the only thing I wouldn't want to do is hit the super pastel in this case, but you wouldn't always be doing that, and you could create some absolutely out of this world bright animals. Moving on to one of my favorite things, something to do with Monarch. This is not a Monarch, but it is a het, and it has no reserve at all. So this would be a het red Axanthic, lemon pastel, het Monarch, possible het pied boy. So it's 100% het Monarch. You would want to send in a shed test to RGI for that pied right away to determine if you do have a het pied on your hand, because that's going to affect a lot of your pairing choices. It is a proven breeder at that, so it's already up to size. Ideally, of course, as always, I say you want to try to get a visual in your males, but this would be a good way to start creating your own visuals. If you get yourself a het Monarch female, you're well on your way to just creating your own, and then maybe you pass him on to someone else to also have the same opportunity as you. Having het red Axanthic and lemon pastel, which lemon pastel is just a more yellowy version of pastel, by the way. It's I believe its own gene, but its own line of pastel, I should say. But I believe it is compatible with pastel. Correct me if I'm wrong, of course. That can happen. But the idea of creating Monarchs for a lot cheaper, right now the bid's only at $5. It's a proven breeder at that. So if you want to get into Monarch for a bit cheaper, this would be a great way to do it. Just pick yourself up a female, a het Monarch, and go head to head. Not the greatest ideal chances in the world, but if you create one Monarch, it's all worth it in the end. But there's always that idea of the het pied too, right? We didn't even talk about that. So I wanted to show off a few of the examples of some of the cool things you can do with Monarch and pied. On the left-hand side of the screen is one with fire pied, and on the right-hand side of the screen is one without the fire. They're very, very nice. You can see a fire Yellowbelly Monarch pied, and then just a normal Monarch pied right here. I actually kind of like the normal ones a little bit better. But even crazier, you can see this mahogany Yellowbelly Monarch pied. I'm not sure about it, but a lot of the just standard Monarch ones that I see, Monarch pied, unless it has fire or something in there, seem to bring in so much pattern. But that's the sort of stuff you could be flirting with if you do happen to get het pied on here. So yeah, right away send in that shed test, because that could change a lot of your decisions on what you pair it with, no doubt. I had to show this one off, and some people might be looking at this and saying, I've never seen a ball python like this in my entire life. And that would be because you are right, because you're only seeing half a ball python here. This is a hybrid. This is a Woma python and a ball python mix. It is 50% of each. In reptiles, there is a lot of hybrids that can be created, and it is a controversial thing. That might surprise some people, but it is for sure controversial. I don't have much of a strong opinion on the hybrids. I think they look cool, and quite frankly, I think if the care for them is possible, if it's something that you can give to them, because it's difficult to determine that care, but if it is something that you can give and something that you can determine, I mean, to each their own. Hybrids are not something that I can see myself ever really getting into, but they are very, very interesting, and this animal is insane. I mean, look, for one, let's talk about the elephant in the room. Those eyebrows that it has. I don't know why we have a thinking thing also on its head. That won't go away. But these little eyebrows are so cool. They're so insane. The pattern is just absolutely beautiful. apparently there is rumors that they are semi-fertile, which that's not always the case. Sometimes you create the hybrid and it's not. I mean, that happens a lot with certain mammals too, because believe it or not, there's certain mammals that can have hybrids. And for example, horses and donkeys can breed in real life and create a mule. And mules are generally infertile themselves. They usually cannot create offspring. So in this case, we don't know for sure, but I had to show it off, you know, and it is being bid on with 0 bids. There is a caveat though, if you are in the US, this is someone from Canada. So I don't know if looks like Canada sales only on under 1,000. So that's kind of hard to determine on bidding, obviously. Regardless, without talking to them, it's probably best not to bid. And it's also best not to bid if you don't know anything about the care of these animals. So I just still had to show it off because it is incredibly cool and incredibly unique. With our second to last one here, this Rainbow Enchi Ghost is absolutely beautiful. There is a reserve on this as well, and that's because Rainbow is a very rare gene. It is the most lavender looking gene of the albinos that I've seen, your standard albinos. So you normally have your albinos, your candy and toffee, which are the same gene, those two. And then of course the lavender albino gene. Those are the most popular ones, but Rainbow's out there too, and I think that it is the most lavender looking one. I think it's the best of them all, but it's very rare. They are very bright. They stay very beautiful as adults. And if you don't believe me, guess what? You're looking at an adult. And of course, being a double recessive with Hypo in there and Enchi as well is very nice. If you can pick up this boy, he would immediately be able to start a breeding program for you because you can start creating double hets immediately, which would be very, very cool. If that's the sort of thing that calls to you, there is a lot of different things you can do with Rainbow. It is, again, in my opinion, the most bright, the most saturated, and the most beautiful of all that line of albino. As we said before with reserve pricings, bid up in increments to where you're comfortable, and if you don't get it to there, well, don't fret. You can always just let it go and the auction will just void out. But it's a gorgeous animal and a very underworked project that is absolutely gorgeous. And for our last animal would be this Pastel Stranger Leopard Clown female. This one was put up not long before we started this, and it only has one bid at 10 bucks. I can almost guarantee you it will continue to go up. I would immediately hope and try to get this animal without the pastel in it, but that's a good thing. Being a female, you can choose what you want to breed to it, and there's a lot of different options. Stranger Clowns are really, really nice. I'm immediately trying to get Yellowbelly into this, and maybe even one more dark gene like Blackhead or GHI even. Those would be very, very nice. Or even crazier, you could go in a different route. We already talked about a few of the more subtle genes. We already mentioned Yellowbelly here, but we talked about Lace earlier. That would be incredible because it would add a lot of definition and bring a lot of control into this darker animal typically. Obviously the Pastel is really lightening this animal up, but you can definitely see the influence of the Stranger gene here, just trying to burst through and creating this just really nice orange tangerine animal. But if you could get a little bit more control there, you can create even more crazy contrast and clean this animal up. So Lace would be a really, really great route to go. I also am tempted to say Redhead because Redhead just really bring in this beautiful red coloring, working well with the Stranger. So I think those would all be really cool options that you could do with this project. So hope you enjoyed. Like I said, we should get back to normal starting next week with our first live, I think on Tuesday. Like I always say, if you've ever got anything from any of the auction videos that you see here or from any auctions, please sound off in the comments. Hope you enjoyed, and if you wanted to check out a lot of the genetics we talked about here, you can actually see those in the videos right here and here.